Hello everybody and welcome back to the weekly English shooting live stream. I of course will be your host this evening, Callum, and I am also joined, not just in spirit or in chat, but in person by Paul the Supermod.
Hello everyone.
But this is not really set up for two people, unfortunately, and believe it or not, I only have one chair, so unless he wants to sit on the floor next to me for the entire stream, he's going to be nice and comfy over there in the corner. Not only will he make sure that you can't say anything silly, but he can actually physically stop me from saying anything silly as well. He might have his work cut out. But yeah, I hope you've all had a fantastic week. Hopefully lots of shooting activities since the last live stream. There's actually quite a bit to talk about this evening. Lots of really interesting different stories, as well as let's just say a few gizmos and gadgets. We will be talking about a first little look of the Mantis Blackbeard X. We didn't really get that much work done this afternoon. Just going to be... You played with it as well. We were a little bit hooked already. I think that maybe gives you a little taste of what we already think are initial impressions. But yeah, before we get too into it anymore, of course, more importantly, don't forget to hit that like button. Make sure you are subscribed if you are not already. It's free to do so. But if you do want to help out the channel, there is also the Only ES fan, so you can join the channel, help support its growth, and you also get access to some really cool emojis like, you know, Dan's face. Name Daddy Dan. I have no idea where that's come from. Anyway, you're all probably here wanting to hear about what changes have been made within firearms licensing, and sort of a spoiler alert, like it's nothing really has necessarily changed. So for those of you a little bit out of the loop, you have to make a very definite distinction between firearms law and firearms guidance. Now, it sort of says or it's demonstrated how complex our firearms laws are, that you need a 200 odd page document giving you guidance of how to actually understand it. So the guidance is incredibly important because it's almost the Home Office interpretation of the law. So it's what shooters, firearms owners should be using as a guide. It's also what the police and firearms licensing should be using as a guide. But as you will probably see, there are still some grey areas which haven't either been tested in law or still a little bit grey. So they are constantly changing and adding and hopefully improving the guidance. Nothing so far recently has changed in law. So it's still the same law, but it's maybe an improvement on the clarification of what that law means. I hope you're staying with me on that one. So this was, I believe, the previous guidance that was out March 2015, and we have the new one, so we can do a little bit of a side by side, which is November 2022. This is fresh. This is like hot off of the press. Now, as you can see, it is 233 pages long, the new guidance. Funnily enough, the old one was 259 pages, so I guess there was 20 pages of useless firearms law that no one needed to know about or have any guidance on. But it certainly seems a little bit more condensed from initial looks, and I think a little bit clearer in terms of the way it's laid out, and it's just a little bit easier to read overall. Because it's over 200 pages long, it's not like I've been able to spend the previous week, going letter for letter, word for word. But I thought we'd take a little bit of time looking at it this evening. And if there's anything particular that you may have noticed already, which you think is significant, then please point that out. Or if there's any particular areas of this that you want to look at live, then again, use that chat box and get involved. So the sort of the biggest one straight off the bat is this definition. So they have this preamble, which is, you know, it's almost like a dummy's guide to firearms law and firearms licensing. And very interestingly, what is meant by the term firearm. Previously, it just had firearms means a lethal barreled weapon of any description from which any shot, bullet, or other missile can be discharged. That is, at that time, the accepted definition of what a firearm is: a lethal barreled weapon. We've talked about that plenty of times on the channel before, and if we go down to chapter 2, it does expand on this a little bit, but it is very you can see it's a little bit airy-fairy. Firearm means lethal barreled weapon of any description from which any shot, bullet, or other missiles can be discharged. This includes any prohibited weapons, whether it is such a lethal weapon or not, any component part or such a lethal or prohibited weapon, and any accessory to any such weapon designed or adapted to diminish noise or flash caused by firing the weapon. Paul is sitting next to me sweating profusely. I'm not going to say why, because we've just covered over something that's very interesting, and we won't be talking about this evening, but we will be at some point looking for clarification. Bonus points for anyone that can pick out what I'm talking about. And this is between the two guidances. It's consistent between them, but yes, so they talk about what is lethality, because obviously if you have this general expression of lethal barreled weapon, well, you want a lawful definition of what that is, because otherwise it's open to interpretation. We end up in this grey area. So they've done a lot of forensic studies, and based on all of that, it is safe to conclude that a fully automatic airsoft gun or fully automatic airsoft guns operating at 1.3 joules or less, and single shot or semi-automatic airsoft guns operating at 1.5 joules or less would not engage the lethality threshold, covering over into stricter controls under the Firearms Act. So it's sort of like, this is sort of what we think airsoft guns are. This is sort of what we are sort of putting the definition of what lethal is or lethal isn't. But when we go back to the new guidance, it's a lot more definite. We don't just have this, you know, firearm means a lethal barreled weapon. They specifically mention with kinetic energy of more than 1 joule at the muzzle of the weapon can be discharged. And you're thinking, well, hang on a minute, you've got airsoft guns that can discharge that, or discharge over that. So does that mean that an airsoft gun is now a lethal barreled weapon? Well, this is another element of the new firearms legislation, or the new firearms guidance, that has changed. We now have a formal definition of what an airsoft gun is, which we previously didn't have. Again, it was all sort of airy-fairy and fluffy, but this is a little bit more definite. Although something that Paul has actually pointed out, or it might have been Connors, I can't remember who initially raised it, they still haven't given the difference between an airsoft gun and a Rift.
No, they have.
They had. It's in the VCRA Act, yeah, but it's still not in the guidance.
It's not in the guidance.
Yeah, which is it's covered under the VCRA Act, but again, because it's a Rift, not necessarily a firearm, it gets very, very confusing. But now we have this, so it sort of defines this. You know, a firearm is any lethal barreled weapon with a muzzle kinetic energy of over 1 joule, but then instantly you have, you know, guns that are over that 1 joule, but they're then counted as airsoft guns. So it's sort of like a little bit contradictory, but because they've actually specified what an airsoft gun is, therefore it doesn't fall under a lethal barreled weapon, therefore it is not a firearm, and that's why people can buy, sell and own them freely. Apart from that, I have been going through a lot of different areas that are maybe more that we talk about more regularly, things like miniature rifle exemption, safe storage, safe travel and all that. The wording does seem very similar. The look of it though is quite different, again, it's more of the formatting of the document, but in terms of actual like big changes, again, because the law hasn't changed, the guidance hasn't needed to change that much. What they've probably done is known elements of confusion, or maybe where further guidance was required, like in the area of an airsoft gun, they have given it. But it's always interesting going through the guidance, and I know it's 233 pages. I'm sure you have a lot more interesting things to be getting on with within your lives. But if you are a firearms owner, if you're interested in shooting, whether that be airsoft guns, whether that be air guns, shotguns, rifles, whatever, you should at least spend some time going through the guidance. You will learn some interesting things, and it's always good to be keyed up and knowledgeable about what the law is, but also you do have to take a pinch of salt, because this is guidance, not necessarily the law, and there are areas where it specifically it hasn't been tested in court. And I think let's see if I can find that. Tested in no, let's just go for court. Oh, here we go. You can say, well, although interpretation of the law is ultimately a matter for the courts. So again, it does make this pretty pretty adamant that this is only guidance, and at the end of the day, if you end up in the wrong, it's down to what the court decides. But there was a specific area where there's a lot of case law as well within this, and I can't remember where it was. You can see there's 73 mentions of the court, but it will ultimately be for the courts to decide whether an item falls within this definition. So you can see they've given themselves a good. The interpretation of the law remains a matter of the court, but there is an element in here where it actually says this is our understanding, but it has never actually been tested in the courts. So it's sort of like, it's you're kind of safe, but if you really want to push it, then we can use you as a guinea pig. But yeah, in terms of just interesting areas of the firearms law, this isn't a change. This was in the previous one about 3D printed guns. What is the government doing to prevent 3D printed guns being used? If someone was to possess, purchase, manufacture, or sell a firearm or its component parts otherwise than in accordance with the requirements of Section 1, 3, and 5 of the Act, what about 2? Of the Firearms Act 1968, they would be liable for prosecution. And this is the sort of the issue of 3D printed guns, is that, well, our laws do cover them, so you can't just go around making 3D printed guns without any hint in prison. Just because they are 3D printed doesn't make them devoid of any firearms laws, but also they are highly they're easy and cheap to make and highly hard to trace. So yes, it's not the stream certainly wasn't meant to necessarily be there in terms of scare or clickbait, which is a dirty little word or phrase. The guidance has changed. The guidance is new. Unfortunately, it is going to take a while to actually go through the nitty gritty of what has changed. And I think actually a good example of this is miniature rifle ranges. So as we know, they went through this recent firearm safety consultation where they admitted that miniature rifle ranges, or the miniature rifle exemption, would be changed. Now, it hasn't yet changed in law, so therefore the guidance is still the same. So whilst we know of these changes are going to come into play, it still is how it was because the law hasn't changed. This guidance has to reflect how the law currently is, not how it was or how it's going to be, how it is at the moment of writing. So I can't see that this version is going to necessarily stay around for that long, because we do have these enhanced levels of security changes coming in. We've got the changes around miniature rifle ranges, we've got the ammunition changes, and things like that. So it will be shortly updated again to include all those changes, but they have to change within laws. So yeah, I don't know, has anybody else noticed anything within here? Have you had the chance to go through and look? Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat box. Again, use the chat box. Like, this is interactive. You can get involved and have your voice heard, or your opinions, or raise questions, or whatever. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. Disappointed, where's the white hat gone? White hat already got dirty. I need to transport it back here. So I've now got 2 white hats, because they actually cocked up the logo. They did this logo, but it should have been the inverse. So I now have a fresh, proper black logo white hat, which I will try and find some way to safely transport without getting dirty here. I wore it for 1 match and got it grubby. So I mean, I'm not, I'm sat here like I'm shocked, but it's a white hat. Yes, I knew this was going to be one of the dangers. Paul also has a white hat, although he has 2 white hats, but one doesn't fit. Can I have that one back then?
No, I'm dyeing it green.
He's actually going to dye it green. As some of you will know, Paul's colour theme is green. So he's going to dye a beautiful, crisp white hat green. And before anybody asks, no, this stop asking for your own colours in the caps. Like, we're just playing around for our own sakes at the moment. Because we can. Because we can. John Hewitt, so there must be an EF beer tonight. No, there has been no beer. Beer was yesterday, actually. Pub nights are Wednesday. Don't ask why. That's just, gets you through the week, I guess. Guidance/law depends on the FLD, I think. Yes, it can do. This is one of the biggest problems that we have up and down the country, is consistency between firearms licensing departments, and even within a singular firearms licensing department, loads of different FEOs having different opinions and interpretations of the law. Again, why the guidance is so important. While certain FEOs and firearms licensing department may like to throw the guidance out of the window and make it up as they go along, or it certainly seems like that sometimes, it's still what they should be following. And again, that's why it's important for you to spend the time going through it. Let me I'll put a link in the chat box just so you can, I mean, it's easy to find. You literally just type in firearms guidance in Google and it will pop up. So you can find it on this page. But yes, it's always important to look and as yourself to go through. It's a worthwhile exercise because you can find pretty good nuggets. And if you are more, let's say, clued up on firearms licensing or firearms law or the firearms guidance, that can put you in a better position with your FLD. Certainly if you can quote certain areas of it, then your FEO is going to go, okay, right, he's going to back off. Now, like an interesting thing, this isn't something new, but this is, so one of the issues that a lot of people have, again, this is, going through it, just looking for differences. We found a lot of stuff that hasn't changed, but is actually interesting that I didn't know, I hadn't seen before. So why am I searching words such as desire? Because I think this is quite, is this the right applications for variations? No, it's not that one. Here we go. So this is all about good reason. Now, again, good reason is a fundamental element of our firearms licensing process. When you apply for a Section 1 firearm certificate, you need good reason to possess every single gun on that firearm certificate. For those of you that don't know, you will have a slot for every single gun. It's not like a shotgun certificate, a Section 2, where the certificate allows you to own as many different calibers or as many different shotguns as you want, all under one certificate. You have dedicated slots under a Section 1. but good reason is an underpinning, and it's something that I don't necessarily like talking about that much, because if I go out there and say these are all the good reasons, if you have good reason, you will have good reason, and you will know what that good reason is. If you are looking for good reason to own a gun, then you probably don't have good reason. It's sort of one of those. But something that does get, I think, confused about, or certainly does cause issues, is when we start to talk about, like the best example are spare guns. And this is for like high-level competitors when they're traveling across the world, across the country. They're investing a lot of money within matches and their chosen sport. And a lot of firearms departments will look up and say that a spare gun is not a good reason. You do not need a spare gun. And within the firearms guidance, good reason should be neither confined to need nor equated with desire. So it isn't just about need. It shouldn't be confined to need. Because do you need a spare gun? Like, you've already got a gun. As long as that gun is working, you don't actually need that spare gun. You only need that spare gun when your first gun fails. But it's certainly beneficial to have a spare gun. If you go and invest thousands of pounds traveling halfway across the world to shoot at a world shoot, to shoot at a high level, like intercontinental level 4, and your main firearm breaks, well, you're in a different country, you're halfway across the world, you're gonna be pretty stuffed, right? Even nationally, even within the UK, I know of people that will go to level 3 mini rifle matches, they will go to level 3 shotgun matches, and even level 3 action air matches where they will have spare guns. It's part and parcel of the sport. Sometimes you will have a malfunction with the firearm. You will have something go wrong that you cannot get back up running in the time till your next stage. So you have to run to the car, get a new gun, obviously have it checked over, approved by the match director, so on and so forth. But that gets you back into the competition, that gets you back going. So knowing little things like that, what is actually the definition of good reason, it could be very beneficial if you find yourself in that situation discussing with an FEO whether you need a spare gun. The other element to that, which I think is an incredibly good point, certainly for, again, say practical shooting and high level competition, is that if you are a high level competitor and you really are going for the national or world championships, you are going to be looking for any sort of marginal gain. You're going to be looking for any sort of tweak or modification that you could make to your gun to give you that competitive edge. Are you going to want to make serious changes to the gun you're about to take into competition? No, you're probably going to want another gun that you can play around with, you can tinker, you can take risks with, so you can try new bits and bobs on there, new accessories. You can try a different port cut on, maybe if it's a shotgun. Lots of stuff that you might want to try on a gun that you're training with and developing with, but you don't want to necessarily mess around and tamper with the gun that's running flawlessly that you're about to go and set into a match. So that's another, I think, very good reason why you would want maybe an identical gun, so that you've got one to train in, you've got one to compete in. Of course, you want to try and keep your competition gun as your training gun, but if you have two identical guns, that can work very well as well. About time the new firearms law was drafted. Yes, of course, this has been an ongoing discussion for a very long time, which is basically firearms law does in the UK is grossly outdated. It's been amended and chopped and changed so many times, and I think that's one of the reasons that we have to have this guidance of our firearms law because it is so incredibly complex and actually open to interpretation. And a lot of people have been calling for many, many years, pretty much the entire time that I've been within shooting sports, for a complete overhaul of firearms law. Not necessarily complete changes, but rewriting it, basically going back to a blank canvas and, you know, starting afresh from the new day. Brian, FLD will use guide or law, whichever one suits them best at the time. Yes, we do get a lot of that, unfortunately. Airsoft firearm, it contradicts itself. Yes, I hadn't actually noticed that. That is very interesting. Yes. These airsoft firearms are not firearms. We'll stop calling it a firearm then. It's the same thing as weapon, the way that they use weapon so much. You know, it's an air weapon or it's an airsoft weapon. You're like, no, it's a bit of sporting equipment or it's a tool. It's the use of that inanimate object that makes it a weapon. As long as it's not used as a weapon, it doesn't become a weapon. Shame they didn't specifically not give guns back to shady people. We will be talking a little bit about that in a little while. Firearm used to be a gun that propels the projectile by gunpowder. Any air gun of any power could not be a firearm. Well, we would love to go back to those days, but of course, you know, now you do have fairly spicy air guns, ones that can actually take down deer. There's the 50 cal. I've forgotten what it's called, but it's a 50 cal air. What was it? It's the. I know that Neil over at Rack and Load did review it. Air rifle. Umarex hammer. It was some ridiculous foot pound. So it's on Amazon. What? Mm. How is it on Amazon?
As long as it's two-tone, it's fine.
No, this is an air rifle. This is a 50 cal air rifle.
Send me the link.
But surprisingly, it's out of stock. But yeah, it's on Amazon. How bizarre. Umarex Hammer 50 caliber PCP pellet gun air rifle. The most powerful production air rifle on the planet. Dumps a ton of energy into its target instead of carrying the energy with it through the target. One full tanks delivers 4 full powered regulated shot and 1 finishing shot. 4 shots total. 4,500 psi carbon fiber air tank. Very quiet shooting. It shoots a 50 caliber pellet up to 1,130 foot per second. But what is the foot pounds of it? I want to know. I know I can work it out from all of that, but I'm not a human calculator, unfortunately. 3 powerful shots. Oh, 3 full power shots, yeah. Oh, yes. So bearing in mind, so for an FAC, for those of you that don't know, you can have a firearm air gun, and that's any air rifle that the projectile has more than 12 foot-pounds of energy. This has 705 foot-pounds of energy. That's more than a lot of centerfire cartridges. So I need to review one. Bad shenanigans will be had. It will be the 700 foot-pound air rifle versus watermelons. That's probably already been done. Why am I not already on YouTube? It's a beast, you know, and this is why a car has significantly more energy than, say, 700 foot-pounds if it makes contact with something squishy. But if people are in agreement that certain guns are going to be licensed or certificated, and I know there's probably a lot of people going, no, we never agreed to that, and we don't agree to that, but there are people that do support firearms licensing and firearms certificates. So if we're going to agree that some guns are going to go on to a certificate, there needs to be a line. There does need to be that line, doesn't there, of like, well, what does become a firearm? Although this is interesting that you know, an air gun of any power can be considered a lethal barreled weapon, but it technically is a firearm, but it doesn't come under a firearm certificate because it's sub 12 foot-pound. This is why we need guidance, because it's so confusing. Not all guns are made equal. Plus, you have stuff like Section 1 shotguns. You have Section 2, which is a shotgun certificate, but then you have shotguns that are under a firearm certificate, and they are lawfully regarded as firearms, not shotguns. This is why it's so hard to understand our laws. But let's Umarex hammer 50 cal test. If someone hasn't shot a watermelon with it yet, I'm going to be there we go. Oh no, that's the gun that definitely shouldn't be legal in the UK. Moving on. I can't actually Umarex hammer 50 cal watermelon. Someone must have done it. Although 50 caliber air gun versus a safe. Let me just mute that before I end up getting the thing banned. I mean, it doesn't look like a particularly like hefty gun. Let's I want to see some destructive power. Come on. It's got a bit of kick, that's for sure. Right, let's see the safe. Yeah, that's not a normal I mean, any other like normal air gun would have just pinged off of that. That is doing some pretty serious damage to a safe, and that is an air gun, purely air being used to propel that pellet.
Told to check out the Zeus.
The Zeus.
Zeus air rifle has over 1,500 foot-pounds.
What? The Zeus. This is just getting silly now, isn't it? It's like going to a it's like going to a drag strip. Like, my car's got 1,500 horsepower. Well, I've got 2,000. Well, I've got 3,000. There's just people trying to oh wow, it's the same guy. See, this looks more than just a normal air gun, that's for sure. The Zeus, the world's most powerful air gun. It's a 72 cal. So what's that? A standard like 177 pellet? And what's he gonna put down there? He's teasing us. So that's a 2.2 pellet. Come on. And what does this thing shoot? Yeah. That's yeah, that's substantial. And you can see that it's a big gut. Yeah, that's God, look at that, the barrel wobble. 3 pumpkins, toast. Still no watermelons. Disappointed about. Oh, that's usually a good when they put it in the water. Are you gonna or Fanta? Yeah, that's some serious energy right there. What else does he shoot with it? So Zeus 72 cal. I wonder what foot poundage this is. Let's switch back. Zeus 72 cal. It is energy. Oh, you guys were saying 1,500 foot-pounds. What is, like, say a 308 Winchester? See, Wikipedia is great for this sort of stuff because they put so many energy to. So a 308 Winchester is 2,668 foot-pounds. So that Zeus airgun is half the muzzle energy of a 308. What about 223? 223 Remington. So 223 223 is 959 foot-pounds. So that Zeus airgun has 50% more energy than a 223. That's why I think some, again, if you're going to license a 223 or a 308, don't think you can argue about all air guns not being under license, because for once you can say I'd rather stand in front of a 223 being fired at me than an air pellet. Let's see what you guys are saying. Also hearing FAC prices are going up. That's another element of this guidance, is that they do have fees. They do have the fees table. Let's see if I can find it. We are, I think, 100% going to see a fee increase. We saw there was this shooting. Here we go. So this is the latest guidance. This, again, I don't believe has changed. We can go side by side if we really want. Let me get it up on both of them. Fees. Chapter 20. So yeah, this is interesting. On the new guidance, the fees are under Chapter 19, and on the old one, it's Chapter 20. So there's definitely a lot that's been removed. Whether they've been able to make it more succinct, I don't know. But anyway, this is the new guidance. So grant of a firearm certificate, grant of a shotgun certificate, and if we go to the old guidance, there should be a. Okay. Well, that's not helpful, is it? So they didn't put it in, did they? That's helpful. So we can't compare, but anyway, it doesn't look like they've certainly been changed. It is the same prices as before, but we are going to see a increase in fees. I am 100% certain on that now. We had that Gun Trade News release an article about it, where I think it was somebody from the Home Office had stood up at the Gun Trade Association sort of annual meeting, or like AGM, and basically said, yeah, we're going to be putting the prices up, and I think the number of about £200 was thrown about. Now, I've said it loads of times before, I have no problem with fee increases. There's the separate argument of whether we should be paying for firearm or shotgun certificates in the first place. I think that's a separate conversation. We do pay for our firearm and shotgun certificate, so it's then, if we are paying a fee, then that fee is going to change. The cost of everything else is going up, therefore fees of everything else are going to go up, and I think the firearms certificate fees are nothing else. The previous fee increase was in line with inflation, but with that increase we were promised a load of new efficiencies. We were promised new systems within firearms licensing, which some counties still do not have, and some have only just been able to roll those out. Firearms, we've covered this on the stream a few weeks ago, but firearms licensing is the worst that it's been in terms of its service deliverables across the board, across the country, and now they're asking for more money, and it's like, well, hang on a minute, you still haven't delivered on what you promised last time. Now you want to put the fees up again, and the service you're delivering is worse than how it was last time you put the fees up and you promised it was going to get better? No. But the biggest silver lining to paying a fee or paying the total cost, and of course Basque, credit where credit's due, is due, have been the only ones to actually give any sort of tangible figures of how much it actually costs. It actually costs the police to process an application for a firearms certificate. And it looks in the region of 100 to 150 pounds. So if they do make it 200 pound and the police start profiting, it does give us the argument against the antis, against the newspapers when they come and attack us and say, like, why is taxpayers' money being used to subsidise firearms ownership? We can turn around and we can tell them to sit and swivel because we're paying our way. It's just one less weapon for them to use against us. It's one less argument to have, one debate to have. And at the end of the day, firearms certificates are renewed at every 5 years. There are talks about it being every 10 years, but even on 5 years, 200 quid, that's £40 a year. Like, I know that could make a significant difference to some people. I think overall it could be a price worth paying in terms of giving us extra defense and extra clout when people try to come after us. But yeah, in terms of later on for this evening, we will be having a little discussion about Sussex Firearms, who have seemed to have done a Devon and Cornwall. That's going to become a phrase. And we're going to be talking about Devon and Cornwall going full Devon and Cornwall, and the daily, whatever it's called, Daily Record, continuing to do a daily record. But something that I'm actually very excited about, something a little bit more positive, and I know something a lot of you guys have been getting your knickers in a twist over, is a new toy. So we talked about this. Big props and shout out to Mantis. So I went and got in contact with them and was like, really like the idea and look of that Blackbeard. So full disclosure, they sent this to me out of the kindness of their heart. There will be an affiliate link I will put in a minute. Got to earn that YouTube money, right? But it was actually a subscriber that sent down the Mantis X, the Mantis 10X previously. X10, Mantis X10, which this has inside it. So it's very, very swanky. And yeah, so I didn't pay my own money last time, but it wasn't sent. I genuinely liked the look of what the Mantis was doing. For those who haven't seen that video, what the Mantis 10X, X10, too many letters and numbers for my liking. What dyslexic, yeah, to play my dyslexic card. What that ended up doing is you could attach it to your handgun, to your rifle, to your shotgun, and it was sort of an accelerometer and gyro, and it would be able to plot every aspect of your shooting. So you could see on it with pistol, you could see it at your initial grab, you could see where you get your grip, where you bring the gun out, and then when you start hunting on that target. And you could go from target to target, and it would trace where you were initially coming onto the target on, and then all the fuzz, let's just say, of what you were doing. And the issue with that is it was great for live fire training, but for dry fire you had to manually cock the gun because you were pulling the trigger. It would be able to get all sorts of metrics about your trigger pull, whether you snatch the trigger, whether it was consistent and a good squeeze. And it's got a really smart app. Again, this is all in the other review video on the channel, but it's got an incredible app that will I'll connect everything in a minute, but it's got different training drills and you can go through history. So I was playing around with it earlier. This is not has it got my, no, I'm gonna say has it got it from last time I actually used it with the PPQ, but I was playing around, didn't actually have it in the gun, but you can have it's this like 6-shot plate rack, and you can go in, and again, it wasn't in the gun, so that's not how I normally acquire a target. I was just handling it, but that's the trace you get. And you can also connect your phone or use your phone to use targets from Mantis, so it's even smarter than if you were just using, say, a dumb target. But anyway, the Blackbeard X consists of this pretty nice little kit, everything that you need. So you have your drop-in for your bolt. So this replaces your bolt and your charging handle, and then of course you have a magazine. And if you watch, you want to have a look here, you will see it's not going to work now, is it? Have I put it the wrong way around? We were trying this, there we go. We were trying this earlier and Paul was like, there's no way you're going to be able to do this on camera efficiently. And he was right. Can you see that little knobbin? That's the technical term. So this auto resets your trigger. And it is brilliant. There's no delay on it. I have to say initially, now we were using Connor's lower and his trigger is slightly different to mine, so I will drop it into the gun that I use for competition, and you know, which I'm very, very familiar with now. So the trigger feel, I can't put my finger on it, but felt a little bit different, and I think that was more to do with the reset. But overall, there was no delay on it. You could pull that trigger as quick as you could pull it, and this would reset it as quick as you could unreset it.
On a full battery?
No, even on the lower battery it was fine. I think that was a bit of a, because it wasn't low, it was 1.5 bars. It wasn't on its lowest. The other element to it as well, which, how am I gonna, what can you see? It's all weird angles, but anyway, it's got a laser in it. I went for the red laser, and there was good justification. It can come with a green laser or an infrared laser, but as you pull the trigger, is that going to show up? Is that flash? I can't. I think you. I'm just gonna. I am really struggling. But anyway, when you pull the trigger, it fires a laser. So you can actually get a visual confirmation of like where your gun is shooting, whether you've pulled a shot, whether it was on target. Now, that isn't something that I think is necessarily beneficial for training, because you shouldn't be looking at where your shot is going. You should be looking at your dot and obviously paying attention to the next target that you're going to go for. So the reason I went for the red laser is that personally, I use a red dot, and what we confirmed today is that it disappears behind the dot. So you don't get distracted by this dot flashing up, but obviously you can pay attention to it if you really want, or you can use it to record. You can, obviously it's something visual for the camera to pick up, so that you can use all the different apps on those targets. Now, of course, the issue that a lot of people have been asking, or the number one question is, what is this compatible with? Because obviously we don't have standard 223 AR-15s. So what this will drop straight into is any mil-spec 223 receiver set with a 223 barrel. So any 223 straight pull in the UK built on an AR, on an AR platform, this will drop straight into, and you will be able to use it. With the CMMG conversion guns, so like the Battle Arms with the Aero Precisions, even the Lantax, what usually happens, and you might be in the lucky case where you're still using a 223 barrel, and you have the full CMMG conversion kit. What normally happens though is that because you're going to be using it as a dedicated 2.2 rifle, you end up putting a 2.2 barrel on there, and therefore the conversion kit has to be modified, and you have this protrusion into the upper receiver, which will clash with that. So for like for the battle arms that we use, this will not drop straight in because it has a dedicated 2.2 barrel. The 1522, the Tippmann, the Chris, this is not going to drop straight into. What we've ended up having to do at Magload to actually test this, and this is what I will be using for the review, which is going to look a bit silly, is that it's going to be one of the Battle Arms lower, so it's going to be one of our competition guns lowers, but we have a spare upper receiver, and Paul's handguard in waiting for when he gets his Battle Arms. So it's a bit of a Frankenstein. Oh yes, and we've got the Aimpoint Ace. I want to say the
it's the
Acro
box
it's like the acro or something.
The
Yeah,
cube.
the square, which I've been meaning to review for a little while. So it's a bit of a Frankenstein gun, but it's enough for us to see that this has absolutely massive training potential. Like even in the half an hour that we were sort of messing about with it today, like we were getting quicker. We were acquiring the target quicker. We were doing more consistent sort of double taps on targets. Our target to target times were reducing, and Connors was like, I'm feeling a lot better. Like I'm a genuine training. And the fantastic thing as well is landed now. Even though it was sent to me, I did have to pay duty on it. So I think it works out to in pounds, it works out to £260. You can order it from the this is where the affiliate link comes in. Gotta keep the channel running somehow. Where is it? So if you are interested and you would like to pick up yours, you can head over to, and Facebook's being Facebook. Oh, come on, you can work for me. I actually think it's my Mac that probably needs a bit of a clean. But if you are, it's gone full Facebook. Why? It's anytime you want to copy a link, Facebook has to spaff it, don't they? It's just Paul.
Don't copy it from Facebook.
I can't, but that's the only place I've posted it.
Where did you get it? Where's the email?
Oh. No, it's not the email. There's a whole, and now there we go. I got it working. Anyway, let's see if I can try that again. Oh, I managed to select it. Right, there we go. Here we go. I'm going to trick Facebook. There we go. There's the link. If you want to learn more, click the link. That was hard. Please don't make it for nothing. So yes, it works out with our exchange rate about £260, and the total duties, free shipping, and total duties came to about £70. So again, work out that like that is 20%, and I end up paying 70 quid on 250. Like that doesn't add up. So anyway, it's going to work out, I think, about £270 it worked out to. So landed, it's going to be about £340. Now, for an auto like, bearing in mind I've never seen something that does this, just as an auto trigger reset, just to get that muscle memory and have full dry fire capability at home, like I wouldn't have batted an eyelid paying. We literally were like, we're going to buy one, and I was like, well, I did do a fairly favourable review of them last time. I wonder if they'd send me one, and they very kindly did. But like genuinely 100%, myself, Paul, or Connors would not have batted an eyelid paying for it. And just the double tap training is the best part. Just the double tap. But when you put in, I mean, we didn't even use the brain part of it today in the unit, did we? No. We were just using the auto reset. But bearing in mind that you have this app, an actual built training tool, and it's not guesswork anymore. Like you can actually break down where you're losing those fractions of seconds. And when you're competing, like look at Wales, the last level 3 mini rifle match of the year, second to fourth was separated by 0.8%.
I don't know, I was 10th.
Paul doesn't care, he's written that match off. I wasn't in the top 5, therefore.
No, I didn't write it off.
He wins one mini rifle match, and now his expectations.
I've got 12 presents medals.
12.
That's all I need to know. 13.
I will mute you. So anyway, we at the top, the gap is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So these marginal gains, shaving those fractions of a second off in your double taps, shaving the fractions of seconds off going target to target and your target acquisition and time to first shot and all of this, over 12 stages at a level 3, that adds up. Target by target, stage by stage, that adds up and could easily make the difference. So very, very impressed. And And I know a lot of you are probably going, well, what's the use? You know, we're not in the position where we've got spare uppers lying about and, you know, or spare guns or what. If it's not going to drop into a 1522 or I can't drop it into my gun, then, you know, what's the point? Well, part of the reason we wanted to get our hands on it so much is because we knew that there would potentially be some compatibility issues. And, you know, Magload does have the capability of designing, prototyping and manufacturing a whole host of different products. So we can't make any promises. We're not going to say that 100% we are going to be able to create a different housing, because these are all screwed, right? It looks like it is a serviceable, you know, it's serviceable inside. It's not sealed. You can unscrew it and you can take it apart. I'm going to do the full review first of it before I start taking it apart, because I think Mantis would be pretty pissed sending it to me, I take it apart, it doesn't work, and then I can't do the review. But we will be taking it apart, we will be having a look, and we will be doing our absolute damnedest to be able to make a 1522 kit for it, a 22 CMMG kit for it, a Titman kit, a Chris kit, like basically all of the guns that we use regularly here within the UK. If we can make a housing that works and fits, we will try and make it compatible with your gun. Obviously for us, we want, you know, whilst we have the ability to have, say, a training setup, you know, we're seriously exploring if we can't make a housing for it, so it just drops into our untouched sort of competition rifles, then we will get, you know, we'll go and get another, say, MRO, we will get a duplicate upper, we will go and get maybe not a actual exact barrel, but something to simulate having a barrel on the front and the weight and all of that. We will create a training upper, so we'll be able to go in, get the lower, take the lower, take the upper off, put the training upper on, and it will be our gun. You know, our competition gun, because, you know, even though you're talking, say, an extra 400 quid for an MRO or around that region, and, you know, probably a few hundred quid in other bits and bobs, that's how good we think this is. You know, being able to actually do proper dry fire at home and have the metrics to back it up and see the improvement. You think about how much you spend on ammunition. You know, somebody summed it up very quickly with who shoots CSR. Like 223 isn't exactly cheap. Well, no ammunition is cheap at the moment. He's like, you know, in one range session, you could save the cost of this in ammunition, right? And even 22, you know, if you're talking 340 pounds, well, that's what, 3,500 rounds of CCI mini mag now, maybe even less than that, or just 3,000 rounds. Like, we will get through 3,000 rounds in terms of training in a season, no problem whatsoever. So if we can actually get the same benefit for free at home, just having to charge the battery up, how powerful is that? And then you don't have to drive to the range. You can literally just pull your gun out the safe, drop this in, and start training, and actually have useful, sort of tangible training points. So yes, we will be, Hang Fang, please make one for the Vepper. We straight away got onto the conversation about shotguns. Because again, it's, you know, we're shooting shotguns competitively. If we can make it fit a gun, we will do it. Whether, you know, I might be completely talking about my arse. I don't know how possible it is, how tangible, how feasible. Don't even know how much it is likely to cost. At the end of the day, these, you know, we would have to go down the 3D printing route, and these are fairly big parts. Just as a, you know, like magazines, we want to talk about magazines. We've spent a small fortune in 3D printing prototype magazines in the past. They are not particularly cheap. So yes, no promises can be made at this point. But we, you know, Magload is like the whole ethos from day one. You know, with Magload is Connors wants something, so he makes it. Yeah. If other people want to buy it, then he'll sell it. And you know, when Connors wants something, I've never seen him design so quickly. I want something done. Like, what? There it is. I wanted it. I made it. So yes, we will be getting straight onto it. So this weekend I will be filming the review so that we can safely take it apart without any risk of losing that ability to at least review it. So yes, Daniel, yes, you're back of the queue. Three or four blocks round now. But yeah, just to stress as well, if you do have a CMMG 2.2, a conversion kit CMMG, but you are still using a 223 barrel and it's got the long insert on the let me get it up because it's maybe not explaining it as well. Conversion kit. So this is what a typical CMMG conversion kit looks like, and actually I can get magloads. I can get it up from magload and show you what ours look like. Oh great, I didn't take a picture of the, there we go, that's better. So this is what a standard CMMG conversion kit looks like, and this is designed to go into a 223 rifle and make it 2.2. So as you can see at the front here, this collar at the front, you have an insert of the 223 round. So with a dedicated 2.2 CMMG, you can see that insert at the front there isn't there. So that means that you have that protrusion where obviously the 223 case would have, you know, ordinarily go into the chamber. It protrudes, and that is what clashes with the Mantis and why you can't fit it to one that. So basically, if your CMMG conversion kit in your gun looks like this, then you will have to pray that we can figure out a way to transplant the electronics into a new housing. If your CMMG conversion kit looks like this, you'll be able to drop the Mantis straight into your gun. And anybody that is running a 223 straight pull, or your gun is built off of let's say a mil-spec 223 receiver set and doesn't have a 2.2 barrel on it with coming back into the receiver, then again you'll be able to drop this straight in. We will also have it at the really nice little segue here. We will have this available to have a hands-on play with at the Magload open day. So for those of you that don't know or haven't been living under a rock, Magload will be holding an open day on the 26th of November, Saturday 26th of November. And for those of you keen shoppers among you will also know that that is the weekend of Black Friday. I shall say no more. Here is the event link. Oh God's sake, Facebook. What is it with Facebook and... Anyway, I'm sending the big link. I cannot, and Facebook won't let me send it.
Do you want me to send it?
Yes, please. Paul, up and away, Paul. What is
the event link? Or?
Yeah, the link to the event. Paul will be putting in the link to event because obviously I'm so incapable I can't. So yeah, if you want to come down and have a chat, there's going to be free food. We're going to have a barbecue. We're going to have drinks. There's going to be a number of different dealers. We've got like Caliber Innovation. They've always got a load of interesting goodies and guns and toys to play with. We've got Cotswold Classic Arms again. You want to see the guy that makes battle arms and makes the battle arms rifles. He's going to have a straight pull SA80, I think it is. And yeah, so Cotswold Classic Arms will be there. We're going to have Zero West watch manufacturers, some very, very nice pieces. We've got iWholesales and XPSC, so Paul's Club will be there running the Action Air / airsoft range. We will also have a setup area with the sort of training gun with this in it. So if you want to actually get hands on and try this and try some of the apps on the try some of the functions on the app, then you'll be more than welcome to do it. Of course, we will all be there. It should be a pretty good time. We really enjoyed the last one, and everyone that came down said they couldn't wait for the next one, so we made you wait over a year. Sorry about that. We will try and do one in the summer next year. It's just been a very, very busy year for us. But yes, yeah, lots to happen. So 26th of November, you can turn up any time from 10 a.m. and it's going to be at the Magload factory, which is based in Havant. Our postcode is P091JW, and it's right at the bottom of the A3. Like literally, if you come down the A3, not go on to the A27, literally come straight off of the A3, then you will you'll pretty much find mag load. So yeah, what told you it would not work with the dedicated 22 CMMG group? Well, we had to try it. I said Calibre first.
Did you?
I said Calibre Innovations. Yeah, I did. I'm pretty sure. Callum, you missed one. I'd said Calibre Innovations to begin with, and then I said, oh, did I say Cotswold Classic Arms twice? I'm pretty sure I said Calibre Innovations first. That's what went through my head anyway, honestly. Anyway, Calibre Innovations will be there. Marmaduke Creations will be there. Maybe I said Marmaduke Creations first. I don't know. It's been a long day, long week. I am tired. We'll have... Yeah, so have a nap and then we'll see you at the open day. So yes, we're going to have loads of basically different dealers, different guns. So it won't just be Magload that you'll be looking, but you'll be able to get hands on with all of our stuff, of course. I've said the barbecue. You're literally right here. You're just not listening.
I'm talking to people.
You're talking. Okay. Well, David must be talking to other people because he missed that I said Calibre. It's recorded, so I will go back through and check. Mags before or after the open day? Yes. Moving on. We are waiting for them to come. That we are now waiting. There is literally nothing more for us to do. We are waiting for the production run to land.
If they arrive, they could make their own. Save me a job.
We could have a mag assembly party. That's right. Not only have you paid full price, not only have you waited several months more than what we said it would take, but we're now going to have you come in and assemble them yourself. That is peak. And cut the spring. Yes, safety goggles will be provided. Peak customer service right there. Yeah. No, we will obviously. If you genuinely want to come in and assemble your own mag, then please do. Anyway, moving on. I'd love to be talking about this Mantis X and the open day all stream, but we have some other interesting goings on out in the wild. This is the story. This is something that's actually quite old, but I've only been made aware of it more recently, which is something very similar to what happened in Plymouth. For those of you that are unaware of what happened in Plymouth, because you've been living under a rock, basically somebody that quite clearly shouldn't have had he shouldn't have been in possession or trusted possession of a spoon, never mind a shotgun. And of course they took his shotgun and shotgun certificate away from him, gave it back even though he was receiving anger management classes, and everyone around him was pleading with the police to take away this guy's guns, and then he goes and kills a number of people. Well, it's not to that degree, but we have had something similar, actually quite close, near Chichester, not too far away from me, West Sussex. Now, the reason that this has come to light is I haven't had this confirmed, but I've had a number of people get in contact with me and say that West Sussex police, or Sussex police, have been successfully sued because of the way that they handled this. And basically this guy shouldn't have had a certificates, and there were more firearms licensing failures. So significant questions raised over shotgun licensing procedure at inquest into brutal killings in Woodmancote near Chichester. Significant questions have been raised over the procedure which allowed a man who killed his partner, 2 daughters and himself to legally obtain a shotgun license. Straight off the bat, let's just clarify that this was not this was not a failing of the licensing procedure. It was a failure of the firearms licensing department to actually follow the procedure, and that's made even more clear when we head over to the BBC article on this, and you can see this was back in the 13th of July. But the fact that I'm getting all these reports that the Firearms Licensing Department or the police force has been successfully sued, that sort of by definition says that they were at fault. And of course, the person that is ultimately responsible for these deaths are the crazed gunmen that actually went and killed them. But when the police had the opportunity to maybe present it, there has to be some blame. And as you can see, Woodmancote gun killer lied on shotgun form, inquest told. A man who shot and killed his partner and daughters had been granted a shotgun license by police despite being caught lying on his application form, an inquest in Horsham has heard. So applied originally to Hampshire police, but Sussex police granted the application because he moved. He bought the gun from a registered dealer's 9 days before using it in the shooting. After he shot his family, he turned the gun on himself. He killed himself, his partner, and daughters. Giving evidence from Hampshire police, who is in charge of the force's firearms department, said Needham did not declare any police cautions or convictions or any relevant medical conditions, including depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts, in his form. As part of the application process, a firearm inquiry officer, FEO, interviewed Needham at his home. During the interview, the FEO said Hampshire police would check its database and speak to his GP. He then admitted that he had not disclosed a caution he received at age 25 after a bicycle theft because he did not think it was relevant. He also admitted that he'd been treated for depression as a teenager and saw his GP in 2013 for workplace stress, but he said it was a long time ago and he did not think it was relevant. The inquest heard that he'd been treated for depression twice, once as a teenager and once in 2003. Also claimed he filled out the form as his partner filled out the form. He didn't write well, and she did not know about the caution, so did not include it. But the inquest heard that basically he was making that up as well. So this is like, and this just right. So they were asked how common it was for people to be dishonest on the application form. He said it wasn't very common, but it did happen, and the assessment was then whether the applicant deliberately intended to deceive or they had a feeling the information was not relevant. I'm sorry. Now I know of a few people, and one particular case where they had a firearm certificate and they applied to become an RFD. Okay, RFD is maybe a little bit more serious than a firearm certificate, but during the application for the RFD, they found out about previous medical history or issues, which was like 15-20 years prior. I think it was acute depression, but they had not declared it on either the RFD application form or their previous FAC application form. And the FEO ended up going up to him and basically saying, look, this wasn't an issue, right? This depression, it was acute. You're no longer, a very long time ago, it wouldn't have been an issue. But because you haven't put it down on the form, your integrity and your honesty and your overall suitability to be a trustworthy firearms owner has now been called into question. So not only are we going to refuse the RFD application, which you had every ground to apply for and would have got, we are actually going to revoke your firearms certificate. So this is one case where somebody even more minor for something that was acute, just the once off, 15-20 years prior, they ended up losing their certificates because of their honesty being questioned. And this guy admits that he's lied or didn't think were relevant convictions. It says on the form, it is black and white. It says all criminal convictions. There's no if, buts and maybes. If you've had a criminal conviction, you need to be writing it on your application form. And it says all relevant medical. So he admit to lying. Straight away, that should have brought into question his suitability and trustworthiness to be a firearms owner. It's not necessarily, I say it all the time, mental health issues, previous convictions. It is not a complete blanket no in being able to get a firearms certificate. There are people that are on antidepressants that have firearms certificates, because every mental health issue or mental health issue or illness is different. And just because somebody is depressed does not mean that they are a risk to themselves or others, right? But every single case is different. But this isn't about this depression or how far away it was, or this conviction or how long ago it was. This is about honesty and somebody that has been caught lying on multiple points, and yet they still issued it. And sort of the kicker, a disclosure warning letter to Needham recommended by the FEO was not sent because the case was passed to Sussex, the inquest was told. That's a pretty big gap, isn't it? And people have told me for years I should move county. Maybe I would actually stand a chance. And this is the thing, this is Hampshire, right? Hampshire, trust me, are one of the sticklers for the procedure. This is the force that implemented the new statutory guidance for suitability checks. They implemented it months and months and months. I think it was a good 12 months, maybe even 2 years prior to when they actually needed to roll it out, right? They are way ahead and are an incredibly strict force in terms of their interpretation of the guidance. And yet, somebody lies on their application, gets caught on it, and Hampshire are like, yeah, whatever. No, I don't think that's too big a deal. No, it's not very common, but we had to sort of give him the benefit of the doubt. And it's just like, once again, this isn't an issue here with our firearms legislation. This isn't an issue with our law or the procedure for firearms licensing. This is an issue of people actually sticking to and following the guidance. If the procedure had been, like with this person I was giving the example of, if it was followed like that, actually, regardless of what the issues are, you've now lied. That's a serious character flaw, right? You're not trustworthy, and we're now looking to give you a firearms certificate. I think your suitability has been compromised in that regard, and furthermore, they're meant to do. Hampshire were doing GP check. Well, this was back in 2016, I think it was. So he's granted the shotgun certificate in 2016. So I don't think back then they had the current GP form that we do now, but certainly Hampshire would have been getting in contact with his GP. And the GP should have at least been able to say, hang on a minute, this guy has had mental health issues in the past. Maybe you want to double check this one. So I think it's just unfortunate, a very tragic example of procedure and our guidance not being followed, firearms licensing sort of failing to do what they need to, and this is the consequence of it. At the end of the day, ultimate blame lies on the lays on the guy that pulled the trigger, but we all have to jump through a myriad of hoops to be able to get a certificate to be able to own firearms, where the guys that are actually dangerous, they seem to just sort of get waved on through. So it's frustrating, and this is why we're having numerous experts call for reforms of firearms licensing. Calling for reforms of firearms licensing, Devon and Cornwall have made, well, not necessarily Devon, strictly just Devon and Cornwall, but Devon and Cornwall and Sportsman Gun Centre have been raising a few eyebrows. So some of you may have seen this pop up. So this was posted on Sportsman Gun Centre's Facebook page. Fast track your firearm variation and collect on Black Friday. Devon and Cornwall certificate holders only. Submit your variation by email with the title Black Friday variation to Devon and Cornwall Police. Then collect your licenses at Sportsman Gun Centre Exeter on Friday, the 25th of November, which is Black Friday. Closing date for submission is 4 p.m. Tuesday, 22nd of November. Now, I'm just gonna straight away. I think this is a brilliant idea, right? This shows actually a bit of out of the box thinking. We have seen this before at shows where you have the firearms licensing department there, and of course you're at a show, you may see the bargain of the century and go, oh, I haven't got a slot for that. Well, if your firearms licensing department is a couple of tents over and you can go up to them and flutter your eyelids and go, oh, please could I have a variation for this gun because it's sort of sat over there and I'd really like to be able to buy it today, and they're able to go, yeah, there you go, there's your new certificate. That's service. That's something I wouldn't mind paying £200 every 5 years for. But sportsmen have they've just upped the game completely. Not only are they doing these Black Friday deals, but they know that one of the biggest restrictions of people being able to actually take up these deals is having the open slots. So Partner, and apparently the firearms licensing department for Devon and Cornwall is only like 150 yards up the road from Sportsman Gun Centre. So they were like, this works brilliantly. You can come on down, we can sell a lot of guns, you can get some great publicity, but overall, and so none of the Sportsman Gun Centre, absolutely props for getting this done. Devon and Cornwall, on the other hand, I think probably should have thought better, because when I first saw this, I was like, that's brilliant, but something didn't quite sit right. And after seeing the barrage of comments from people about this, it clicked why it didn't feel right. This is Devon and Cornwall. This is the firearms licensing department responsible for giving a certain individual back their shotgun certificate, who then went and killed half a dozen people. But this is also the firearms licensing department that is currently quoting 2 years for initial applications for firearms certificates. It doesn't seem, I think, very fair or then in some way professional to be quoting 2 years for initial applications to have people where their certificates have been expired for over 6 months to suddenly sort of shut down the office for a day to go and help a commercial company sell more guns by offering fast-track variation services. It's like, okay, that's brilliant, and that's certainly something I would love to see in the future. More firearms licensing departments getting involved within the shooting community and actually offering above and beyond service. But Devon and Cornwall, I think they need to get to the minimum level of service first, which is certainly a long way away from 2-year lead times for initial application. Because in terms of the shooting industry, in terms of the damage to the sport, people not getting variations for their new gun, or going from a 308 to a 223, or 1-for-1 variation, or increasing their collection, that's not really what's damaging the sport, because they still have guns, they still have their certificates, they're still able to go and buy ammunition, and they're still able to go to the club and compete and buy all the other accessories and this, that and the other. But the people that are waiting for their applications, they're not able to go and do any of that in any capacity apart from with club guns. So they're not contributing as much as they could to the shooting industry. So, Devon and Cornwall, before they do these sort of publicity stunts, which is really what it is for them, they need to get their house in order, and they need to get that 2-year waiting time down to at least under 6 months. And then maybe re-explore it. So, I think Sportsman did sort of realise this because they ended up removing the post. I think it got a fair amount of backlash because of obviously what's going on. And then this statement went out earlier today. As most of you may be aware by now, it is with regret that we had to remove our latest attempt at trying to help shooters and the industry alike from all of our channels. Now, it very much seems that Sportsman Gun Centre feel like they've become a bit of a target, or a bit of you know, that people are annoyed with them. I don't see it at that. I think they've sort of got maybe a bit of ricochet from, you know, people being annoyed at Devon and Cornwall. And also there's been this whole thing that apparently Dorset is tied with Devon and Cornwall, but there's doubts if it still is tied. So people from Dorset were like, well, hang on a minute, what about us? Why aren't we included? So they ended up removing the deal. Well, they say that. So it does say, you know, this has unfortunately come undone in its final stages. But then at the bottom of it, it says, license holders note, if you have or are planning to submit your variation within the window, it will continue to be processed as outlined. Also, the police will still be in attendance at our Exeter store on Black Friday to exchange licenses and interact with the shooting community. So that very much says to me that this is still all going ahead. It's just sort of, don't shout about it. We've removed it from all of this thing because maybe it was getting too much backlash, and I don't know, maybe Devon and Cornwall have some, you know, they have some pretty thin skin and really didn't like the comments, probably mostly truth, of what people were saying of what they thought of the firearms licensing department, and they were like, please, sportsmen, we don't need any more platforms for people to take pot shots off at us. We already get that enough. But it still seems to be going ahead. So it's a little bit of an odd one, but I do think, like, whoever in Devon and Cornwall thought that that would be a good idea, that people will be like, oh, fantastic, yeah, you know, my mate can't get his certificate for the next 2 years, but I can go and buy a cheap gun because it's Black Friday. Whoop-de-doo, Basil. So yeah, bit of a PR disaster there for Devon and Cornwall, but brilliant. Yeah, again, fair play and props to Sportsman Gun Centre for getting that done. In terms of more publicity, the recoil club is still featuring every week now. There seems to be another article attacking practical shooting and attacking recoil. Does seem to have, I don't know, lost a little bit of steam, and that seemed to have happened right after a certain video was released. It's funny what happens when you actually go there and counter misinformation and lies being spread about a sport.
Or just responding.
Or you just engaging or just responding. It's amazing what can be achieved when you don't sit there being silent playing the let's hope it blows over game. So the latest article this Sunday is like pretty much a copy and paste. So the previous one, it was all about loopholes, and this it's a different journalist, and I say, you know, journalist. This has been, so the previous articles were all written by Jennifer Hyland. This is written by John Ferguson, and there's literally nothing new. I think there's a couple of new photos, and, you know, the Home Secretary has been urged to close a loophole in firearms law. Again, this is the whole thing about, these are guns that are held under certificates. So somebody has gone through firearms licensing department, the firearms licensing process. That's not a loophole, right? If it is a loophole, it's an incredibly bad loophole. But it's literally a copy and paste article. So they seem to be running a little bit out of steam, but they are still making noise. They are still, you know, approaching the Home Office. They're still, you know, the Home Secretary. They're still making this a political, and what has happened is that this story is spreading. So this has now gone over to a completely different newspaper and website, and they are now reporting on it. Again, this is a pretty much copy and paste article. Oh, it's John Ferguson, it's the same reporter, and it's like, hello, like, sorry, I thought we were talking about practical shooting and practical shotgun. Like, what even is that? So this is nothing new. There's been no more, say, lies. It's only been the same lies and same misinformation that people have been exposed to, but it's spreading. And this is the danger, I think, unless you actually challenge these articles, unless you actually try and give some balance with the facts and how what the actual reality of it is, then we allow these journalists to control the narrative. We allow them to tell people what our sport is. The people that should be doing that should be us. right? It should be the people it affects the most, not people that obviously have a clear agenda. So I very much think, you know, it's down to us as a community to combat the lies and misinformation out there. Heppy will happily assemble his own magazine. So we can do a little video if you don't mind being on. Put it to the side. Yeah. With what, next to Daniel's?
No, Dan's not coming in this batch.
Oh yeah, that's right. Dan's in the third batch now, isn't he?
Third batch.
What's that? Fourth quarter 24?
It might just make the end of 23.
Might make the end of 23. Okay.
Generous,
we always said he would get it for Christmas. We never said which Christmas that was going to be. But yeah, Happy, if you want to come down, if you want to assemble your own, it would be our pleasure. Just let us make sure that it does fit together first, right? Blake tries to assemble that, go, hang on a minute. No, that will not be the case. It will go together fine.
Unless he puts it back to front.
Back to front. How do you even mag? Colin Penfield, you'll find that licensing failures are a worldwide problem. The same thing happened in Australia in 2018. In that case, he had multiple DV convictions and was given a handgun license, killed his family. Crazy Cressy, I had a breakdown at 21, though work related. I wrote this on my FAC application, and it was just exhaustion why I had a breakdown. They were fine, and I made sure I put this down on my renewal. At the end of the day, I've always said, when you approach these application forms, when you're asked to disclose things, it's always better to be more honest. Do not make the assumption of what you think is relevant, right? Let the FEO do that, because it's one of those things, if it's something that needs to be talked about, then it's something that needs to be talked about, right? And that it's not, by leaving it off, they're going to find out, or you know, unless you live in West Sussex, then they're definitely not going to find out, or Plymouth for that matter.
Or they'll know and they'll just ignore it.
Or they'll know and they'll ignore it, you know, just throwing that guidance out the window. So but you should always disclose it. So like I think it's changed again, but last time I looked at the application form for Hampshire, it was it said it excluded driving convictions. It specifically excluded having to disclose speeding fines, and previously it specifically included speeding fines. So I was like, well, it says here in black and white that I don't need to do it, but I put them on there anyway, because worst case, you know, well, we don't need to know about that. Yep, but I'm not going to take the risk that you don't. So, you know, you put absolutely everything down. If you should look at it more about what are they potentially going to dig up that you haven't put down on that form that will be used against you more. And it doesn't matter what it is. If you don't disclose it, the fact that you haven't disclosed it alone can be grounds to refuse your application. So, and you know, as Crazy Cressy 7 has said, like, or as an example of, just because you've had, you know, depression in the past, anxiety, you've been off for, you know, work related stress, this, that, and the other, like, everybody like gets ill at some point, right? You know, nobody's perfect. We all go through periods of high stress, or, you know, high sadness, or whatever, right? But you get through it on the other end, right? And it's down to your GP and it's down to the police to make an assessment of if that's still an issue or whether it's likely to cause an issue. And the longer the time frame has been, the better, because it's further in the distance. But you don't need to worry about it. Again, there are people that suffer with anxiety, suffer with depression, that are on medications, that are still fit to own firearms, are not a danger to themselves, not a danger to others. But if you don't declare it and you don't have that conversation about it, you'll just be told you're not trustworthy, and they will deny it. In the US, lying on a background check form can land you in jail for 10 years. Maybe implementing something like that will prevent these incidents. Yes, again, I don't really know. I really don't understand this whole I don't think it's relevant. It's like, how is that an argument, right? Have you ever been convicted of a crime? That's not within the last 10 years, any major crime, any crime not involving a motor vehicle or whatever. It is a clear black and white. Have you got any convictions? Yes or no? Have I ever been arrested? Have I ever been convicted of a crime? Yes, I have. I'll put that on the form. Have I had any mental health issues? Yes or no? There's no ambiguity there, right? It is a yes or no question. If it is yes, you need to declare it on the form. So yeah, obviously they have a different view to it about, maybe we give them the benefit of the doubt. But no, I think if you are applying, they should have it. They should have it in black, bold letters. If you deliberately omit anything from this form that we later find out about, you won't just be not giving you the certificates. We will throw you in prison. Let's do that. I think that would have an effect. Murray just got here briefly. What is the new guidance on firearms licensing law? For anybody that didn't catch the start of the stream, I'll go over it for 2 secs quickly. Basically, they have updated the firearms guidance. The guidance in the law is different because our law is so complicated. You need a whole booklet of guidance telling you what it is. So we have this guidance, which is sort of like the Bible. It's what the police use, and it's what we use to stay within the right side of the law. And every now and then they need to update it or change it because laws change, or they find a better way of confusing people with the guidance. And basically the last time this was updated was in March 2015, and there has been a new guidance on released November 2022. However, not a lot has changed. There are a few more definitions, and it certainly has been reworded in areas. I haven't been able to go through word for word to actually see what any changes are, but ultimately the law has not changed, so the guidance can't really change that much. The guidance reflects the law, or the guidance explains what the law currently is. So the law hasn't changed at all, but they are continuously looking to make improvements in the guidance, clarifications, wording things better. The guidance is there to be a guidance. It's meant to help you. It's meant to guide you in understanding the law. If there's an area of the law that is it's grey or ambiguous, then they may update or change the guidance to include clarification around that law. If there's new case law, if somebody has taken a point to court and it's been it's set precedent, then perhaps they would want to put that into the guidance, which again helps future people to say, look, this is the state of play, this is what the courts think, and therefore this is what you should think. But yeah, so it's things like they've actually defined, or they've technically redefined what a firearm is, but that's only to include the area of that sentence about kinetic energy, about being over 1 joule, and they've defined airsoft guns. All the other segments that I've been looking through, all the interest, all the stuff that you'd think would be really juicy if they change, it's the same wording. It's the formatting of the document is different, which I think is actually improvement in itself. So yeah, it's not like there's been this massive change in firearms legislation. The legislation hasn't changed at all. It is purely the guidance on the legislation that has had, I would say, a bit of a spring cleaning, and clarification or improved clarification is not a bad thing in this case. I really don't think this is anything to damage us or will hurt us. This is actually something that is quite positive and beneficial for us, because there are so many areas of our law that are grey, right? And we want to stay on the right side of the law. And if you want to be really, you basically you have the black and the white, and then you have the grey. Well, the people that are super cautious are only going to operate in the white. But the grey area, it's like, well, you definitely don't want to be in the black. Of course you don't. You don't want to overstep the line. But if you've got this grey area where you don't actually know, well, the firearms licensing doesn't know where the line is, where the police don't know where the line is, where you don't know where the line is, you could, through no fault of your own, in the eyes of the police or firearms licensing, be breaking the law because of a misunderstanding or misinterpretation of the guidance. So I think it's in everybody's best interest. We can argue about where the line is and maybe if it should be moved closer to the white or closer to the black, but at least have the line defined, because then we can argue about it, right? At least everybody knows what the state of play is. Now, of course, the danger of asking for that to be done too often is, that that line is going to move in the wrong direction for us, but at least you know where you're playing with. And I've experienced this so many times. One of the biggest examples of this is that little bit of the conditions on your FAC, specifically if you have a Section 1 shotgun, which it says something like the Section 1 shotgun can only be used on approved courses of fire by somebody that holds sufficient experience and that there is adequate insurance in place. Something, I don't think that's verbatim, but it's something along those lines. So I asked my FEO and there was another FEO that was there who I didn't actually know at the time, but turned out that they're actually heavily into practical shooting and should definitely know the law very well around practical shooting. And I asked them, I said, well, what defines a sufficiently experienced person, right? I've done a lot of shooting. Does that mean that I'm suitably qualified or suitably experienced to set out a course of fire? And they just, that's for you to decide. And I'm like, well no, you're my FEO. Like, I'm asking you, like, can I do this? Am I going to end up in trouble? And they'll go, well, that's for you to be able to prove in court. I'm going, I sort of want to avoid court, thank you very much. Like, that's why I'm asking you. I don't want to go anywhere near court. And he's like, turned around, he said, like, look, if you want me to give you an answer, it's going to be no. So I won't give you an answer, and I'll let you, it's like, what the heck is... So anyway, luckily the UK PSA has actually quite well defined this now, and it's anybody that has completed a safety course, you are sufficiently experienced in being able to set out a course of fire. So, but I learned that many years later. So yeah, at the time, there's this sort of grey, what I would deem as, it would be down to me to be able to prove to a court, basically, that I was a suitably experienced person in setting out a course of fire. How are you meant to know that? How are you meant to know that that's going to go in your favour? So again, clarification and nailing down where that line is, I don't think necessarily is a bad thing. Alexander Dale, all about the money, in your opinion. My FEO pointed out that I could apply for more guns than I had originally, and even suggested I should have more slots/permission. She also pointed me to a local RFD and a nearby indoor small ball club. Well, that's pretty good service overall. She said she should have... how many slots did you put in for? 2. She said I should have at least 3 and suggested I add another rifle. It would be rude not to, so now I have 3. Again, it's about, to me that's service. Actually, why are you only applying for this? And I've had that before, like, my FEO, I applied for one moderator, and he's like, well, why are you only applying for one? You've got like 3 or 4 different rifles on your certificate. And I was like, well, I know that this one I'm going to need a moderator for. I don't necessarily know if I will need a moderator for all the others. And he said, yeah, but it's, better, it's for hearing protection, isn't it? So it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I'm like, if you want to put down some extra moderators and some extra slots on my certificate, I am not going to stop you. So, they should be there, firearms licensing should be there to give out certificates to people that are suitable. And they should really open the world up to people that are suitable and help them and guide them and point them in the direction of the clubs, rather than a lot of firearms licensing department that seem to always spend their time trying not to give out certificates. Are sub 12 foot-pounds effective at all? again, I wouldn't necessarily volunteer to stand in front of one. An air gun can be lethal. Happy I applied for 9 on grant and FEO wasn't phased at all. I got them all. Yes, in terms of, I don't know if I expanded on this too much. Like, it's not like my application at the moment is really a conventional sort of first time application. It's not like a normal application, let's just say, mainly because of, you know, the amount of agencies that are going to have to be reviewing it. But I think it's like 18 or 20 guns. Now, again, I don't think, you know, technically that's an initial application, but it's not. It's not my first application. Obviously, I work full time in the firearms industry, like basically a full time shooter. So, you know, I can quite easily justify that I have the experience and will be using the time. I will have the time to use all of those guns. My first certificate, I applied for 7, I think it was. Paul went for 10, but again, Paul, you know, maybe not the best example, because, you know, again, works full times in the firearms trade.
I went 3 for everything, and then 1 LBR. So 3 section 1s.
Yep.
3 mini rifles, 3 LBPs.
So went for 9. Oh, and the LBR and the LBR. But again, Paul works full time in the industry, and is, you know, high level competitor. So maybe not the best example of someone's first time application. But yeah, 7, like 6 or 7, I think is no problem at all on a first time application. People do seem to. Oh well, that's just glorious. People do seem to like talk themselves out of like going for more and going for like more ammo or more guns. Like I really think if you can sit there and justify it, like, you should go for it. At the end of the day, they're not going to reject your application because you've applied for what they deem to be too many guns. They're going to sit down and go, no, you've gone for 15, pick 5. But I think 6 or 7 for your first time application is not excessive at all. I think, you know, 10 maybe is a, you know, maybe use 10 as the limit. But again, if you can justify it, then go for it. Yes, we now have a new member to the Only ES fans, which is Mr. 3-inch Dick. Ah, you're gonna fit in well. So smooth. So thank you for joining. Although I've still not seen any of the members use.
It's because you've only got 2 members.
No, I've got more than 2 members. I'll have you know.
How many members do you have?
Well, that's for me to know, and you for never to not know. But it's more than 2.
Make me a member.
I can't give you a membership. Stop being tight and buy it.
I refuse to give you money.
Tight ass. Anyway, being a member, you do get use of. Oh, I'll put them all in. Oh no, have I just clicked that one twice? Might have. You do get use of custom emojis, and the more members that join, the more emojis I can make. So if you want, maybe the next emoji we should have a vote on what we should do. So if you want to use some class A emojis, then please join the Only ES fans. 2 3-inch members. Well, that's a full dose, isn't it? EnglishShooting is ringing up for an update weekly too much after waiting 33 weeks and having home visit 12 weeks ago. So yeah, I would say weekly is probably a little bit too much. Like every couple of weeks. So there was this thing with Hampshire when I first applied, and bearing in mind it took 6 months for my shotgun certificate and 6 months for my firearms certificate. After about 3 months, so bearing in mind the SLI, the service they aim to deliver is 3 months for most firearms departments. So after 3 months, that's when you sort of have a right to start chasing. And Hampshire, without fail, every time you phone them up, would go, it's going to be another 2 weeks. It's going to be another 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks I phone them. And every 2 weeks they would tell me it will be another 2 weeks. It's like, okay, I will speak to you in another 2 weeks. So yeah, I think chasing every 2 weeks, but you can also mix it up. If you have your FEO's contact details, you can maybe, you know, drop them an email, then the main line an email. But at the end of the day, I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but 33 weeks is not a huge amount of time at the moment for firearms licensing. There are people way over a year, some people even longer than that, that have been waiting for their certificates. So, you know, that it's just a state of play. But I would say every 2 weeks, chase them every 2 weeks. But some firearms licensing departments won't even reply to inquiries like that anymore. So Thames Valley don't. I don't think Hampshire do anymore. Oh, there was another one. I think we're talking about it on the stream last week or the week before. There are a handful of ones that have basically just said, unless your house is on fire, we will not get back to you. So I question, anybody here dongle medal holders? Connors has medal holders. Drop Magloader an email. I'll see if we can sort you out. I'm looking to collect 4 or 5 303 rifles as well as some 6. Would putting them down for collection and hunting be an issue, do you think? Well, if you have a look in the firearms guidance, oh no, did I just? Yes, I did. That was, where'd that go? There we go. Find collecting. Part of a collections. So what is this? Is this under good reason by any chance? What are you giggling about?
Just you trying to scroll through everything.
Oh, I think that's only 7.3. Okay. Let's have a look. Collection of firearms. Here we go. So you want to find out about things with collection. The collecting of firearms by a genuinely interesting collector, genuinely interested. Yeah, trust me, firearms collectors are not generally interesting. Generally interested collector should be accepted as good reason for the grant of a firearm certificate. There should be no blanket policy to prevent the collection of modern firearms, though collectible firearms will tend to be of the Second World War or earlier eras, nor should arbitrary limits be imposed on the number or type of firearms. However, a single firearm is unlikely to be acceptable unless it forms part of a collection of other exhibits. But see chapter 9. I love that. Like, this is why the guidance is actually good to read, because it's basically saying if you're going to use the collection good reason, you should go for as many guns as possible, right? Don't go for one, right? Go for multiple. It's only going to increase your chances. Modern reproduction of vintage arms may be collected, especially to fill in gaps in collections of older firearms. There are no caliber-based limits for collecting. And collections may include field artillery, tanks, and other armoured fighting vehicles. This is why you need to read the guidance. They're basically saying that you can have tanks.
You can have a tank anyway.
I know, but there's no caliber restriction. There's no caliber restriction on... So you can have a functioning tank. You probably won't get the slots for the ammunition, but anyway. Vintage handguns are dealt with in Chapter 9. Collections may include firearms disguised as other objects that would otherwise be prohibited under Section 5. So like cane guns. which are normally Section 5. If you're collecting them, you're allowed them. Again, why you should read the guidance. Ammunition may be collected of itself, including expanding, incendiary, or armor-piercing ammunition or explosives that would otherwise be prohibited under Section 5. Basically, collection is the exemption that we should have all known about a long time ago. Basically, the rules do not apply if you are collecting. Chief officers of police should certify themselves that the applicant is bona fide a collector who has a genuine interest, perhaps academic, in the evolution of firearms. There is the bit I'm trying to get to, because this was an area that we actually specifically read. Firearms capable of being fired may be collected, and a collection may include items other than firearms. For example, collections of 1 or 2 firearms should not normally be accepted unless part of one collection. There is something here about generally bona fide collectors of firearms are not normally authorized to possess ammunition and are made subject to a condition prohibiting their use of firearms. This will be an appropriate balance to the possession of a large number of firearms by a private individual. However, there are 2 instances in where ammunition might be authorized. Some collectors may wish to collect ammunition either as part of a wider collection of firearms or in its own right. There may also be cases where applicants wish to fire their firearms occasionally, for example, to test fire them on an appropriate range. In these cases, the allocation of ammunition for each firearm should be small, and the applicant expected to use these rarely. The provisions of regular use for target shooting set out above should not be applied. A similar principle would apply to antique firearms. So yes, this was the bit that I wanted to cover off, is that it's not a blanket. If you are collecting the firearm, you still can go and shoot it. The only difference in terms of collection is when you're talking about 7.1 and 7.3, which allows you to have historically significant handguns or handguns that have technological advancements. So with 7.1, you're allowed to keep the guns at home as part of a collection, but you're not allowed to shoot them. In terms of 7.3, you're allowed to shoot the guns, but you're not allowed to keep them at home. That doesn't apply for general Section 1 collections. So you can still say, I do want to go and shoot these guns, I do actually want to use these guns, but my main interest in them is collecting. I want to collect different 303 models and variants. Wish to fire occasionally probably means things like firing for research purposes, unfortunately, like writing a paper or book. I know, but it's not defined. So it's given an example, but there is no set definition. And again, you can use this, you can sit down with your FEO and go, yeah, normally, it would be for that. But actually, it doesn't say it should solely be for that. So it's down to your interpretation of the guidance, which is the interpretation of the firearms law. So it's all about interpretation, really. Thanks for the info, guys. No worries at all. And on that note, I think it's about time to wrap it up there. Before all you guys head off, please don't forget to hit that like button. It's free. It takes a fraction of a second to do, and it does make a big difference to the channel. Also, subscribing, sharing this video makes a huge difference to us reaching new people and sharing the sport. Thank you to the latest member, Mr. 3-inch Dick, for joining the Only ES Fans. If you want to support the channel, you can join it as well. If you, again, want to get your own Mantis, your Mantis Blackbeard X, then you can follow my affiliate link I've just put in there. And what other link was I sharing earlier? Oh, that's right. If you want to come down and you want to meet the Magload team, you want to hang out, you want to see all the Magload products as well as a number of our dealers and all of the cool stuff that they sell, you want to get hands-on with the Mantis Blackbeard X or have a bit of a shoot or just take advantage of our free barbecue and free drinks, then you can come to the Magload Open Day, which is going to be held at the factory in Havant, just by Portsmouth, on the 26th of November, which is a Saturday. And I do hope to see as many of you guys there as possible. It's literally open to anybody. There's no tickets, there's no entry fee, there's no you have to have a special handshake to get in. Just turn up. like, honestly, it would be great to see as many people, many supporters and subscribers of the channel there, and also anybody that supports and likes Magload as well. But there we go, guys. Hope you all have a fantastic week ahead. Thank you, Paul, for being the super mod in the background, keeping me from talking about certain areas like, you know, moderators and flash hiders. But anyway, I'm sure that will be something we will discuss at a later stream. So there we go, guys. Thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. And of course, as always, I hope to see you soon.